So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's WUMI webinar on solving the data science talent shortage. My name is Hayley. I'll be your moderator for today's session. Whether you're deep in the trenches of trying to build a data science team or just starting to explore the challenges, we are about to dive into them. We know that many healthcare organizations are under quite a lot of pressure to unlock the power of their data. But finding the right people, the skills, and the structure do come with some sort of a heavy task. So today I have been joined by three amazing speakers. First up, we have Kieran. He is the Director of R&D at Palindrome Data. Welcome, Kieran. Next up, we've got Mr. or Prof. Dr. Wim Delver, the founder and managing director of WUMI. And third speaker, we've got Noluthando Ndlovu, the project manager of the Health Systems Trust. Thank you very much and welcome everyone. Awesome. I think what would be amazing is just to give a bit of a pulse check to the audience. I have a bit of a question and I'm quite curious, and also no pressure to answering it right away or having a definite answer, but it's out of curiosity. We'd like to know, are you currently struggling to build or sustain your data science capacity? Please drop a Y for yes or N for no in the chat. It'd be really interesting to see what you are experiencing with this challenge currently. Awesome. I'd like to kick us off. I'd like to hand over to Wim. Wim, I guess, is going to ground us in reality with a case study where he'll be displaying how or why just hiring someone with a data scientist title does not always solve the problem. Over to you, Wim.
Thank you very much, Hayley. So in preparation of this webinar, I looked for examples and case studies, primarily in the healthcare sector, for big organizations that made large investments in data science teams and yet had not much to show for it. And it turns out there are lots and lots of examples of this phenomenon, disappointment and poor return on investment. One well-established and well-published example is IBM's Watson Health. Was a huge initiative, cost literally billions of dollars, and 3 years ago it was sold to an investment firm for $1 billion, which was way less than the total investment that was made over the years. Another example is Premier Health, which is a healthcare hospital group in the US, invested millions in data science capabilities, only to realize very poor return on investment, disappointing results. A third example would be various implementations of the EPIC electronic health record system in Western Europe, primarily Scandinavia and the UK. Hundreds of millions of pounds and euros, with 25% of doctors threatening to resign if the system isn't retracted or improved immediately. So it's really shocking results. And I think if you scan through those examples and you ask why is that, what actually caused those disappointment results, it comes down to two key factors. One is the usability. So the promise is huge, the potential is huge, people are hyped, people are excited, and investments are made. Clever engineers, data scientists, statisticians, computer scientists are hired. But at the end of the day, two things disappoint. One is the usability of the product is poor. And I think that can be distilled to two things. Often the user interface is not very intuitive, it's not very efficient, and the end user, be it a doctor or a nurse or an administrator or a patient, is confused, is frustrated, doesn't know how to navigate it, doesn't know where to find what, doesn't understand the results it's returning. So that's one. Secondly, we are living in existing systems. So even the best new technology needs to be integrated into existing systems. And if those systems are legacy IT systems, then that integration may be very difficult and poorly executed. That also leaves with a poorly usable system. That's one. Second reason is trust. And that lack of trust that doctors, nurses, administrators, patients have in the system is the result of often poor data quality that is fed into the system. And that, so if you give a machine learning algorithm poor data to be trained on, then obviously the performance of that machine learning algorithm will be subsequently limited. And then as a result, the users of that algorithm will say, this is not good enough for use. As a doctor or a nurse, if you have medical notes and you see something that's clearly wrong, you can move past it. You can say, oh, that must be a typo, let's ignore it. But a machine cannot easily make that judgment. So mistakes, missing data, biased data, that all can cloud and sort of limit the performance and the accuracy of the algorithms. Secondly, as humans, we are good at assembling structured and unstructured data. So we have some lab results, but we also have an X-ray, and we also have the narration of the patient, and we can collate all of that together. In machine learning, I think we have come far, and in the last few years, we've made huge strides. But until recently, merging structured and unstructured data in an efficient way and making most of it, squeezing everything out of all of the data, was a big challenge. So that's why the performance of the methods were lacking. And then the last part to explain why trust was not so high is that explainability was often, until recently, was often a problem. So if you give a doctor a black box and you say, trust this black box to make an accurate prediction, then that's a very, very difficult thing to do. And understandably, people want to understand why they're making a certain recommendation or why they're making a certain call for treatment or for no treatment. So all of that together meant that machine learning engineers and data scientists were fighting an uphill battle, improving their value. Thank you.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, Wim. What really stood out to me is those missed opportunities and basically costly mistakes, right? And it's extremely costly within the healthcare space. So thanks for sharing that and bringing home, I guess, the complexity of this problem. I think someone who can bring it even more closer to home is Nolutando. I believe your organization has also been on this journey and trying to navigate these needs. Do you mind sharing a bit more about how that journey looks like?
Hi, Haley. Hi, everybody. So at HST, we're a public health NGO, and in the department where we primarily have started utilizing data science is within our research and implementation science unit. And that's primarily because we have some data-driven tools and resources, namely the district health barometer, where we've got large volumes of data that we've been working with. And the DHB now has been running for close to 20 years. But only more recently did we switch from sort of, hiring data scientists within our team. So we introduced a position, I think maybe 3 years ago, in trying to find people and hoping to attract people, within that space, as data science is an emerging sort of field. Well, emerging to me anyway, maybe it's been there, maybe it has been there longer. Trying to pair people with the right skills, but also within the public health sector. And I think that's probably been the most challenging, where finding people who have sort of that public health experience, but also having the matching sort of technical skills. So a lot of I think, yeah, I think the challenge has been predominantly in finding people with pockets of skills. So people having maybe mathematics and statistics, but not quite having the data visualization. And yeah, at the moment, it feels a little bit like a unicorn. I don't know, in sort of, yeah, our setting. So, and I think just attracting the right people. Maybe I think data science is probably more widely used in the corporate sector, and being in an NGO, maybe data scientists don't always feel that they can contribute in a meaningful way. They're probably being used, I don't know, in like banks or something, or some in like the corporate sort of space, more than anything. But I think in our organization, we're starting to really develop that role. But a challenge being that because we've never had this role before, it's also hard to, as me, for example, as a person leading this work and being the manager of the team, I I don't know all the things, but issues or problems around all the different, there's machine learning, there's visualization, there's a whole lot of range that's being sort of packaged as data science. So yeah, I think that's the challenge probably that I'm having more than anything.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for being so honest and transparent, I guess, with this practical perspective. It is a very real challenge, right? And I think, based on what we've just heard from Nolutando as well, I think a lot of people are probably wondering, so along with Nolutando, what are these actual options available if you are finding yourself in this position, with especially within the healthcare space? Do you mind sharing about that?
I'm happy to do so. Maybe I can also, before we share the slide, I want to try and rephrase or summarize Nolotando's testimony. And so I think it comes down to the idea that data scientists, as you call them, seem to be this elusive, mysterious unicorn creature that is good at everything. They must be great data storytellers, they must be great data engineers, they must be machine learning engineers, but then also they have to understand the subject that the data speaks to, and they have to be able to link to the people in the business and the subject matter experts. And then, of course, they need to be efficient. So that's a very tall order. And it's understandable and almost inevitable that creates challenges in the organization. So, Haley, are you able to share the
Yes.
slides? Okay, great. Thank you. So here's an attempt at summarizing and visualizing broadly the three options that every organization has in building and retaining data science capacity in the organization. The first one is build your own team. The second one is hire consultants. And the third one, I would say, is the intermediate option, which sort of is, I think, in my mind, the best of both worlds, and that's hiring individuals as a secondment to augment or strengthen your team. So if we go through these three options and their relative pros and cons, how do they score along things that really matter? Cost is never a dimension that can be forgotten. So how much does it cost to build your own team? On the surface, it seems to be the cheapest option, because the daily rate or the monthly cost for an internal person is almost always lower than hiring consultants or hiring a seconded data team. However, as I will make the case, that doesn't necessarily translate into the lowest cost overall or the highest cost effectiveness. Second is speed of setup. So by that I mean, how long does it take from the moment you decide you need to build a team or increase your capacity to the moment they can start doing work? And with build your own team, it can be slow if you're not sure where to start. You're putting out adverts, you're contacting recruitment agencies. there's an interview process, and there's a hiring process, and there's an onboarding process. Depending on whether you're hiring junior people or more senior people, obviously that can change the speed at which people are ready to start producing output. For consultants and seconded team members, on average, that is faster because they are more experienced typically, and they've done this before, so they are trained to get up to speed quicker. Once you have this team in place, the next question is, okay, at what rate can they actually deliver output? What's the speed of delivery? And there, the winners, I would say, are consultants, because they are 100% focused on this particular project. They are typically very senior. They don't need any hand-holding, so they can run. They've done it before. They can run very fast. You build your own team, and the seconded team members are in second place, I would say, but not far behind. Next dimension is a very important one, and that is, how independent are they? Do they need internal supervision and mentorship? And obviously, if you're building your own team, especially if you're hiring junior team members, then they need a lot of supervision and mentorship. And as Nolutando already pointed out, that can be a challenge if no one else in the team has that seniority and that experience. Consultants and seconded team members, they run on their own, and if they need any supervision or mentorship, then it's provided by the organization from which the seconded team members come. So as a host organization, as a client organization, you don't have to worry about supervision or mentorship. Elasticity, how easy is it to scale your team up or down? If you're putting people onto your payroll, then it's very difficult to make that elastic for the reasons that we've discussed. So hiring is not super fast, and firing is even slower. And especially in South Africa, employees are well protected, and you need to do a lot of due diligence, and it's a slow and often painful process to downscale and say, I'm sorry, we don't think this is a good fit. It takes months, if not more, and then there are legal liabilities and risks as well. Whereas consultants, that's typically very ad hoc agreements with lots of clauses built in that if something goes wrong or if the need shrinks, consultants can be given short notice to shrink down their requirements. Secondments are typically longer term and therefore somewhat less elastic, but still more elastic than the internal employees. And the last one is also important, and that is how much overhead costs are there. So yes, you need to pay somebody's salary, but there's an office space, is there a parking space, there's a laptop, there's health insurance, pension, you need to send people on training, you need to look after people, and how much does that cost and who's taking care of that? If you're the employer, then it's all on you. So build your own team. There's a lot of overhead. If you're hiring consultants, that's taken care of, and the same is true mostly for secondment. That's of course a conversation, because it all depends on how deeply seconded are these people. Do they come into your office? Do they work remotely? Those things will depend. But in a nutshell, that's a summary of what I believe are the most important features and differences between those three options. And so my recommendation would be for every organization to ask themselves, what is the need? What do they need? How big is the volume of data science capacity that they need to build? Is it short term? Is it a few months and then never again? Or is it something that they foresee needed for many years? How quickly must people get up to speed? What's their internal capacity for training and for mentorship and supervision? How sure are they that things will be stable, or is it possible that things need to be scaled up and down on short notice? And what do they have capacity for managing that overhead? And then based on those answers, they should be able to make an informed decision of which of those three options makes most sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Wim. I think it would be nice for the audience to maybe leave any comments in the chat section on which one of these options that Wim so beautifully mapped out to us do you think will actually help you and solve your organization's data science capacity challenge best? Is it B for BYOT, so build your own team? Do you think it will be a consultant? For the letter S, you can comment letter S or C, sorry, letter S for secondment. And if you don't know, that's also fine. You can just leave a question mark until you're ready to figure out how best you think it would be. There is a bit of there's one comment in the comment section from Danelle. She mentioned that it would seem like a good opportunity to connect with universities with strong data science or statistics programs. This will expose career opportunities in your organization to the top students. Well, I believe you have quite a lot of experience with universities. Do you have any comment on that?
Sure, yes. So in the past at WIMI, we have created internship opportunities for students to join WIMI for a few months. There's another internship starting in July. So as opportunities open up and as clients are also open to working with interns, we are excited to make more such opportunities available. And then internally, of course, for us as a data science consulting company, we use those internships as recruitment pipelines, essentially.
Nice. Notando?
No, I just thank you for sharing about those different options. I just wanted to share my reflection because I've sort of been on the path with all the different ones. Initially starting off with when I wanted to build dashboards, I think that was the initial sort of prompt for me that I needed to get a consultant because that's way more complicated than our organization at that point could deal with. So started working with consultants, and as you mentioned, the pros and cons of that. And then moved on to hiring data scientists internally, having the capacity within our organization. And then having now experienced both of those, it's now led to the secondment option that we are now exploring of having consultants that we can tap into when we need the more complex things, but also having the consultants on board or the secondment team available to also capacitate our internal staff as well. So there's pros and cons and value in all those options, because also I think going fully consultant route with something that's like a big product on HST's side would also be risky, because then it means I can't just phone someone and be like, hey, where's this at any time? Or, having that internal just basis to, work on the things we need to work on. But yeah, I'm seeing like the secondment option being quite a really, really nice combination. Yeah, of the two options of building your own team, which has some limitations based on some of the things you've shared, and then having consultants for the very more complex. We've built 2 dashboards now already, which are really great, and leveraging a lot of our data and exposing it more to the people that use our products. So I just wanted to just share those that reflection that there's nice options.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think you mentioned quite a few times consultancy, and I see Kieran is wanting to speak on that front. Kieran, would you like to share a bit more about from a consulting perspective? How do you see, I guess, organizations respond to these challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Haley. Yeah, super interesting discussion. We consult with a lot of groups, mostly NGOs or researchers, to help them with new data science or AI methods. And I think that's kind of the key part, is this is mostly about like organizational change. So an NGO is used to doing things one way. So they've got the data, they know their problems on the ground, but the existing DHIS2 or pie charts and stuff, it's not working for them. So they've got an interest, a desire to move into whatever data science is. The challenge comes in is if you hire a data scientist off the street, a very smart university graduate or somebody else, and then you just force them to work the old way that you've been doing. That's not kind of getting the most out of your data science, and it's not getting the most of the new methods. So I think if we see it as the data science role, whichever it is, a partnership maybe or a consultant, they're all valid options with different pros and cons. But I think it's about organizational change. Like, can you realize that you're trying to bring new methods into your company, and it's a conduit for all these things that are changing these days. So sure, statistics and AI and machine learning, we're all learning, like, how can this change the way people work and do business or deliver services, if that kind of makes sense. And so there kind of does need to be, I think, an absorption of this realization that you have to do things in an iterative way, and that even if you get your own data scientist, they need a little bit of space to bring new methods into the organization, not just do things as they were. Haley, does that make sense? Am I coming across?
Yes, I 100% agree. And it does make sense. It makes fully sense. So I have actually a question on that, Kieran. What do you then define as a successful data science team beyond the tech? Because you're touching on how the person needs to be understanding on the ground what happens. So what do you see as a data science team as success beyond the technology or beyond the tech? Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think if you're coming from outside, the consultant or the other secondments, but even a new staff member, it's the organization's job to give the context and the consultant's job to do everything they can to understand the context of the program, what the nature of the problem is. But then it's also the data scientist's job to say, well, with this data and your set of problems, here's what's possible, and then run that to the end to find out whether can we contribute to something new that the old methods weren't getting us. Can we find new insights? Can we find new decisions and actually change things based on this effort? And to Bilal's point, it's okay if those things are fit boxed. So if you've got an expensive consultant and you're trying to get an organizational change or new insights in 3 months, I think that's reasonable. And it's okay for the organization to put these things in a time box, as opposed to like, we're just going to have a generic data science team and they're just going to sit here for a year making pie charts. I think it's okay to push beyond that, is my sense.
Anyone else has something to comment on that, Wim?
Yeah, I agree with Kieran's view. So what I'm hearing is data science, by its very nature, can be complex and foreign to the people that have called on the data scientist. And if that's true, then you should expect some confusion, some friction, some misunderstandings, and a lot of learning along the way. And you need to build that into the expectations. You can't just say, in January, we hired a data scientist, and it's March and we don't see much. What a bad investment. That's not a realistic expectation. So change management, an organization-wide learning initiative, almost, I think should be part of this journey that you walk with a data science team. And it's both ways. So the data scientist will have to understand, as Kieran was saying, the context of organization, what are the goals, what are the targets, what does success look like for the organization, but also in the other direction, because a data scientist will come with jargon from computer science, from machine learning, from statistics, and they don't necessarily appreciate that what they're saying is new and unfamiliar to the doctors or the nurses or the business leaders that they are working with. So there needs to be that learning each other's language process, very important, and that takes time. Learning a language takes time, we know.
100%.
I think,
I want to highlight this.
I just wanted to add
yeah.
that I like how everybody keeps saying team and team, because it really does, for me, highlight the fact that I don't think one person can be the sole data scientist in the organization and then be expected to fulfill all these different roles. I think from my experience, I've seen that people have strengths, and trying to leverage and build on the different capabilities is something that I've seen being successful, because at the moment, with the little exposure that I have, I really do feel like a single person is a unicorn. And speaking about the change management that Kieran is referring to, imagine you're this one person in this entire organization, and you're trying to instill this huge change management thing in terms of how people do things and view data and all the processes that need to be put in place. It's a lot. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. That is a lot, and you're right. And I wanted to go back to Bulela. He left a comment which is pretty interesting. He said, perhaps there is room to configure staff KPIs to support some form of data science capabilities. In the era of, I guess, data is king, organizations cannot afford not to have data science skills as part of existing operational frameworks. Data science is the future and should be a competency at varying levels for technical and operational team members. So it comes back to the aspect of a team, right, Nolutando? Thanks for sharing that, Kieran, as well. Those are some nice gems that you dropped there. There's another comment from Hamza. I'd like to bring that up over here. He mentioned that a benefit of secondment is that a seconded professional still has access to the experience and insights from their parent organization while being exposed to the context of the client's problem. That's very true. Thanks for sharing that, Hamza. Awesome. I would like to open the floor to any other questions that anyone in the audience might have. Please pop them in the chat box. Happy to ask this to the speakers. Over here, we have one. There we go. Question, I'm not sure who this is. It's just a LinkedIn user. How can organizations balance a new paradigm shift in their endeavor to tell the story in a new way and also manage the change at the same time while obtaining an improvement in results? Sounds like a loaded question. Anyone wants to take a hit at that one?
I can try. I just think that from HST's experience with having gone through the process of building a team and now exploring the secondment option, I think that works well. So having people internally, I think, is still important, because then you do have the champions inside who are hired on a full-time basis to do the paradigm shifting, but also still leveraging on their high expertise required in terms of getting results and ensuring that those people are upskilled, and getting the benefit of people who are just have much more expertise. We could get to learn from Wim, and we can get to learn from Kieran and pay maybe 10% of whatever it is of their time, but still having the internal team within to do the paradigm shift. It's difficult, I think, from an external person coming into the organization, looking in and being like, this is what you guys need to do. I think that's the value in that and how you could approach it to improve the results.
Kieran?
Kieran?
I can jump in just. And Sandu said it very well. You do need both parties. We've had a couple of consultancies where you get hired and then you kind of get left to do it with the data, but that doesn't really work so well because we need a champion on the partner side to kind of absorb what's going on, and we get the context, and it is a very collaborative exercise, I find, again, whether it's a consultation or internal. And some organizations end up putting their data scientists or their data manager down in the basement, and no one talks to them. I think that's been proven that approach doesn't work, and it is a very collaborative thing. What I took from LinkedIn user who had such a nicely worded question, the couple of words, paradigm shift and change. I think sometimes in my experience, these projects, even just acknowledging that this is going to be a change in the way we work. It isn't the usual, we collect data, we report it to America. It's a little bit different to that. It's like, we're going to collect data, look at some data together and try something new. And that will involve all these awkward things, but we're trying to go for an improvement in results through this project. So they've actually kind of worked it quite nicely, and I find just acknowledging this is slightly different to business as usual is a good start.
Well,
Yeah, what I also, so it's a very complex question actually, and I think we each of us is grappling with what is actually the question behind it. So the way I read this question was, how do you show value? How do you show results, positive results, while you're still in the process of changing and learning and so on? So you can't say, oh, this is very complex, give us a year, and a year from now we'll show some results. That's a very difficult internal commitment that any business leader would have to take, and we have to exercise a lot of patience. So how do you show quick wins while also building for the long haul? That's how I don't know if my interpretation is correct, but that's how I read it. And I think my response would be to resist the urge of jumping in immediately. So to spend a little bit of time, doesn't have to be months, but at least a few weeks, to very carefully do a exploratory consultation company-wide to understand what are the desires, what are the needs, what's the exhaustive wish list of all the things. If you had hired a team of 20 unicorns and you could ask them anything, what would you want them to build for you? Never mind how easy or difficult it is, just put it down. And then once you have that long list, you can ask more realistic things like, okay, can we do it? Is it realistic? How much time would it cost? Do we have the capabilities? And then you start, and how valuable would it be? What's the impact? How far would it take us if we actually did that? So then you can begin to score things and say, on the effort scale, it looks great or not so great, and on the impact scale, this is where it sits. And now you have these quadrants of effort and impact, and you can begin to carve out quick wins that have a relatively high impact but not a lot of effort. That's something you can prioritize. And then other things that take more effort, potentially have a more bigger impact, but it's not going to be tomorrow. And so if you then plan your 6 months or your 12 months journey, and you look for a balance of quick wins and longer term return on investment, then that's how I would say one can balance this need for improvement in results while at the same time working on the paradigm shift.
nice. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that question. Thank you, LinkedIn user. I think for the last about 10 minutes that we have left, I want to try and bring it home with a question that I would like to ask each of you. It would be interesting, and I'm curious to know your answer to this. But what, from your perspective, knowing that you have been experienced with working within the healthcare space specifically and also from a data science perspective, what are any big misconceptions that you've seen about data science in healthcare? I'll repeat the question. What are any big misconceptions you've seen about data science in healthcare? Kieran, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I've got a smallish one or whatever, but often there's a narrative from, I don't know, the 90s or something that oh, in healthcare the data's a mess, and oh, the data qualities just means we can't do anything, and because of some legitimate problems, encoding this, missing data that, patient IDs is a very common one. That means that we can't try these advanced methods that Facebook and YouTube and what's something more modern, Instagram, is that a thing?
That's the thing.
Yeah, so they use these algorithms every day to sell South Africans pizzas and gambling and stuff. And we've been trying to convince people there's a lot of data in the public health space, a lot of data. And yes, whilst there's data missing, there's data missingness or cleanliness problems, they can be overcome with the volume of data that exists. So the natural hesitancy that exists, I think, is a bit of a myth. And these are known problems that can be fixed and still get quite a lot of insights from the data that you have. You don't have to wait until your data is perfect and you've paid $1 million for a randomized controlled trial to clean your data. So I'm trying to encourage, let's try it with the data you have. Let's get started.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Kieran. Anyone else? Wim?
I think an emerging one might be everything is Gen AI. That's the answer to everything. I think that's an emerging misconception. And it's understandable. People are excited. It can do amazing things, and it's very attractive to want to start using it. A related one. So I would say the value of getting your own data back in a well-organized way is underappreciated, and it doesn't have to take long, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. So what do we have? What can we see? What do we understand? What can we learn just from the raw data? We're not building models. We're not predicting anything. We're just checking, do we agree? Do we understand it? Is this, how valuable is this? Like, what are the ingredients? Before you start inventing, like if you're a chef, you walk into a kitchen, you want to know what do I have in my kitchen? What are the ingredients? And then you can see what amazing dishes you can build, right? But you don't start cooking up a storm and before you're checking if you have all the ingredients. So to me, that's a important one. And where we get it right, where there's an openness, where we say, let's in week 1 and 2 just build some basic descriptive dashboards. The conversations, the curiosity, the impetus for then going further and doing predictive analytics later down the line is much better because it's starting from this grounded understanding of internal data.
Nice. Nolutando?
I think my reflection on that is I still think that it's not being utilized enough in healthcare, and if it is, predominantly probably in the private sector as a sort of driven endeavor or work. I feel like in the NGO space, we haven't tapped fully into it because a lot of the data, particularly in health system strengthening, they really think of data as just a monitoring evaluation tool. We're just collecting data for the purposes of reporting to the funder, collecting data for the next report that they have to do, and not seeing a little bit more in terms of the insights that they can get from their data set. So I think, from where I am, that needs to shift. And I think data science for me is where we need to really build capability and just utilize it more in particularly the public health sector in the NGO space, primarily what I know. Because it's people are just they're not seeing the beyond the reports, beyond the targets, beyond what happens after that. What do you use? How do you use that information for evidence? How do you use it for decision making? How do you make the information even more accessible to people outside of your space? So that storytelling element is still very much missing, and I feel like data science has a lot of potential to tap into that.
That's amazing. Well done, Anatana. That was really great. What I hear is that utilizing what you already have, right? We have another comment from Belela. He says the biggest misconception about data science in healthcare is that they are biostatics majors. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. I guess, yes, Kieran?
I could just comment on that because we had this interesting journey probably through COVID where we had a lot of skills in machine learning and all these new techniques. And then we had to work quite a lot with Hero and some of the other epidemiology groups, Boston and those guys. And I actually found it kind of complementary. Their methods can be quite often linear, but they're robust ways of evaluating how they know that the signal or statistic is true in the population. We found that quite helpful, bringing that next to the machine learning things that are very good at bringing insights But like Vim said earlier, explainability is not always good enough. So we kind of had this experience bringing classical biostats or epidemiology with data science methods to try and paint a little bit more credible picture than just the machine learning says X or Y. That kind of bringing it together and then working with some of Vim's team as well. We've had a kind of good experience bringing these two worlds together as well. So it's not like you have to choose between one of them, I'm hoping, is the message.
Yes, that is the message. Awesome. If there's no other further questions, nothing, or no further comments, I'd like to say firstly, thank you very much, Nolitando, Kieran, and Dr. Wim Dalber for joining us today. I think you shared some pretty nice, and thanks for being also honest and vulnerable by giving your perspective from the challenges that you're experiencing right now. And the little gems of insight that you have shared, it's really appreciative. I think that would be the end of our session. So thank you very much to everyone who joined, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Thanks, Hailey. Thanks, everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.